Dear brothers, what's going on, boys? Let's have some fun today. So, one of my old coaches and I were having a conversation last week on the phone, and he brought up this interview that Ed Reed had with Joe Buck. So, Ed Reed was the former Ravens safety who was an absolute savage and was a part of that filthy Ravens defense that ran through everybody. But it was kind of a conversation about him from a kid all the way through high school into the pros and to their Super Bowl run. And I hadn't seen the interview yet, but naturally, because Big Brother is always listening, 20 minutes later, the interview pops up on my feed. And so for those of you that haven't seen it, I really would recommend go watch the whole interview, just kind of YouTube Joe Buck and Ed Reed interview. And there's a part in there that I kind of watched and rewatched a few times that I want to chat with you guys about today. So they're having a team meeting, and Ed Reed pipes up about their potential for winning the Super Bowl that year. And he told his teammates the following: y'all don't want to win a championship because we have a bunch of lowlifes in here. He says, yeah, lowlifes. Like everyone's looking at him sideways, like he just called them all lowlifes. He says, because we have volunteer firemen coming in here and cleaning up after grown men. My locker, your locker, is 2 feet from the garbage can. But you come in, you take the tape off of your wrist and your ankles, and instead of throwing it in the trash can, you throw it on the ground. You drop towels on the ground. Pick up your towel. The dirty bin is right there, and you're going to walk right by it. Why are you doing that so somebody else has to come clean up after you? We ain't winning the Super Bowl if we don't do the little things. So the point I really want to extract from this Come to Jesus talk is this. It can be so easy for all of us to look over the little things in life when you feel like you've made it to the top, or you've conquered a task, or you've ascended your way to some position. Almost like you forgot where you came from. As I listened to this whole first part of the interview, Reed talks to Joe Buck a little bit about how he grew up in, Shrewsbury, Louisiana, in a one-bedroom house with, I think, 3 other brothers. And his mom and dad had to bust their asses so that they could have a little bit of a better life. He himself had to hustle and work hard and say no to doing some pretty bad stuff in order to create a different life for himself and certainly for his future family. And I'm sure his past experiences enlightened his thoughts as they were trying to make this Super Bowl run when it came to doing the little things in life. And after this speech he gave, the team rallied behind that cry, as they talk about it in the interview, and eventually they go on to win the Super Bowl that year. But with the exception of those of us, or those of you listening to this, who grew up with a giant silver spoon, all of us have had to go through times where we had to struggle in some capacity. We had to make sacrifices. We had to feel some sort of suffering and difficulty and struggle. We had to decide on gas or food that day, or my personal favorite, smelling your shirt, which might have had a hint of must. And you go, maybe it's fine. I'll wear it today. I really don't feel like paying for laundry this week. As I think back on my own life, it is amazing to think about where I am today versus even 3 years ago. My wife and I talk all the time about how the 3 years ago Taylor family would be begging for the life that we currently have. How blessed are we today? We can order groceries and have them delivered to our front door. We can afford to go out to a really nice dinner and a beautiful night out. We get to live by the ocean and walk our dogs on the beach. So the question then begs, does that make us better than anybody or the people who don't have those things? The answer is obviously not, because no matter where you end up in life, you typically always started somewhere lower on the totem pole. I was certainly one of those people. And even I had some blessings that other people would have begged for. Just remember, guys, there are parts of the world still that don't have running water. They don't get to take a shower every day and just turn the water on willy-nilly. They don't get to have breakfast like we do every day. As I kind of reflected more on this, I realize that I have unquestionably had times where I would be all high and mighty about where I was in life. Even if the words didn't necessarily leave my lips, my thoughts of others as less than were far too common. Like, I looked at other people like they just needed to get their shit together, or I don't really want to spend time around certain people like that, or I'm going to avoid these people because they're less than. And I would still argue that yes, many people do need to figure their shit out if they are struggling with something, or they need to work harder, or they need to make certain sacrifices. Those sacrifices are the aspects which allow you to grow and become a better man. I will die on the hill that suffering produces character. But this is separate from that. Who the hell am I to look down on other men? The real lowlife is the man who looks down at another, acts like they are special because of some status the world has given them or some achievement they have. You are no better than a hot pile of shit on the side of the road when you act like such a man. That kind of man can ultimately never become a champion, as Ed Reed so well pointed out. They're eventually going to sputter out. Their hubris, their arrogance is going to cloud their mind and eventually consume them until they're brought right back down to the bottom of the totem pole with the rest of the people that they used to look down upon. They fall from grace. That seemed to be Ed Reed's whole point. You can only achieve highly if you are doing all of the little things. But the little things, even beyond just, getting into your playbook and studying and being a good teammate, it also comes down to remembering where you came from and the sacrifices that you've made in your life to be where you are and that others have made for you to be in the position that you're in. The only emotion this should produce is gratitude and a strong sense of empathy for other people in the world. Remember, guys, in all things, be humble. In all things, be kind. In all things, be thankful. In all things, do not forget where you have come from. There was a country song recently by a guy named Kyle Park, who I'd never heard of. And the chorus of the song says this: "My dad would always say, pray out loud, make us proud, and son, don't forget where you come from." All of us have a story, a history, a time where we had to live less than we live now, a time when others had to sacrifice immensely so that we could have the blessings that we have today. Embrace that. Dig into those memories. The reason we are where we are is because we survived that time in our lives. We persevered in that time of our lives. But just because you've moved up in the world or are doing better by society's standards doesn't mean you are different than you were. Money and fame and status don't mean shit in the grand scheme of things. Kindness should never go away. Effort should never disappear. Compassion should always remain at the forefront of your mind. Patience can never be dismissed. Perseverance should never die. Remember, guys, that even God hung out with lepers and the diseased and the dying, but he showed grace. He showed love. He didn't judge them as less than. He didn't ask them to pick up his clothes. At one point, many people probably looked at you and I as less than, as peasants or a lower class, if you will. All of you at some point have had someone who has looked at you and you can feel that disdain or that rejection, or even worse, they don't pay you any attention at all, and you feel in that moment that you are less than those people that bleed and put their shoes on just like you do. But you weren't less than then, and other people aren't now. We are men. We must struggle against mediocrity. We must always be living by our moral code. Men must serve, and to serve, you must realize that you don't just serve when it's convenient or only serve the select few people who you think you might get something from. Remember, guys, flattery is the devil's tool, not yours. I, for one, like to think that I'm going to fall in line with Park's idea. Pray out loud, make us proud, and men, don't forget where you come from. Now, don't dare leave your towels on the ground today. Don't leave your stuff all over the place. Pick up your shit, throw it in the bin, and conduct yourself like the upstanding, strong, and decent men that the world needs. It all starts with doing those little things, guys. God bless all of you. I love you. Be strong. Let's get after it today, boys. Get some.